There we go. We call to order this May 24th meeting of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program Policy Board. Let's have roll call.
Director Boatright. Here. Councilmember Menino for Councilmember Cotton.
Here.
Councilmember Floyd. Governing Board Member Holton.
Here.
Councilmember Hurtak. Here. Commissioner Justice.
Here.
Commissioner Mariano. Mr. McGill.
Here.
Commissioner Owen. Commissioner Van Ostenbridge. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Word that Commissioner Mariano is on his way, and hopefully so are the others. We'll see as we go along. First is changes to agenda. Mr. Sherwood.
There's one update to agenda item 9 reflected in the agenda summary at each of your places. Based on the management board discussion last week, there was slight changes to the recommended actions for that agenda item.
Any questions? Any action on that? All right, motion to approve the changes.
So moved.
Second. Second. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Show it passes unanimously. All right. Item number 2, minutes from the February 16th. Are there additions, edits, or a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Show it passes unanimously. Item number 3, general citizens comments. Any general citizens comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to our award presentations. Mr. Sherwood, take us away.
As we typically do, we try to honor the best Bay Mini Grant program through our Golden Mangrove Award each year. And this year, Sheila's going to introduce our CAC members who went through the judging process to determine that Golden Mangrove Award presentation. And I'll be followed by the awardee's presentation on the actual project.
Yeah, so good morning, everybody. This is probably my favorite board meeting of the entire year because we get to provide awards to folks. So just to give you a little bit of background, in mid-April, 7 of our community advisory committee members met together to choose the 2023 Golden Mangrove Award. So this is an award that's presented to one of the most outstanding Bay Mini Grant projects from each year. So we try to provide one each year. So this year, these lovely ladies and the rest of their review team reviewed 15 completed projects. And so they really go through each one of the projects pretty extensively. They review the project application, so what they proposed that they would do in the project. They review all of the project reports, the photos, the expenses, as well as the deliverables. So now to present the Golden Mangrove, I will bring up Marjorie Carvenin and Miss Nadine Spring.
Morning. As Sheila said, we review all of the completed projects. I thought there were 19 this year. She says there were only 15. It felt like 19. We read hundreds of pages. We go back, and it really is a fairly time-consuming process, but we want to be fair to all of the applicants. And then we get together and discuss what we saw. We do provide Sheila with our analyses beforehand, but then it's a time to fight it out. And this year we picked the sole project, Save Our Urban Lakes. Stewards of, excuse me. And we were quite impressed with their project. I personally went to visit the site and I was quite impressed with what it really looked like in person as opposed to what the pictures were on the final report. So I have to commend them on that. Do we present this now and let them speak?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so Margaret Zach, and I don't know who else will be accepting on behalf of
Jennifer Fowler.
Jennifer Fowler. And I did notice that on the back table, there are some brochures about their project, and I do urge you to pick them up because I was quite impressed by what they do and what they have managed to accomplish working by themselves with volunteers and with the city of St. Petersburg in making a huge difference in the area on Mirror Lake.
And they've really done a collaborative job, which I know you are a very collaborative board across all the Tampa Bay. And I think that gave them the final edge. They were who they brought in from the city, their local neighborhoods, the groups, just made it very special. So thank you, board, for allowing us to have this award. And thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much.
They have a brief presentation, then we'll try to get a picture with the entire board after you
Okay.
guys are done.
Ed, can you share it? Because we don't have this one as a.
Just a second.
It's there, it's just this one's
Yeah.
not as a host.
We have those online too.
Oh, wow, cool.
Just let me know when you want me to advance the slide and I'll advance it.
Okay, we're just going to take about 5 minutes, but I wanted to introduce ourselves. I'm Margaret Zach, Vice President of Stewards of Our Urban Lakes. Jim Bays is our president and he's on vacation. So I'm receiving the award on behalf of Soul. And Jennifer Fowler, who is our Mirror Lake champion. And we couldn't have done all of this without Jennifer and her cohort of Jim Packer, who is her right-hand person. But this project was our Mirror Lake Gateway Demonstration Project, which is actually phase 1 of what we ultimately want to do at this particular lake. A little bit about Soul. Our mission is to improve water quality and restore the natural habitat of urban lakes through the education and engagement of our communities. We couldn't do any of this if we didn't engage the communities and have volunteers come out once a month and help us with the plantings and litter pickup and cleanups. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization as of January 2021. We evolved from Friends of Crescent Lake. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Friends of Crescent Lake. They have been doing lake restoration at Friends of Crescent Lake since 2007. What we proposed for the Tampa Bay Estuary Program mini grant, was to convert 1,903 square feet of lake shoreline dominated by exotic and invasive plants to a natural native upland and wetland habitat mosaic. And this also includes a beautiful pollinator garden. If you haven't been to Mirror Lake lately, go to the Outlook and just look below the Outlook and you'll see the most beautiful flowers in bloom and butterflies and bees flying around there. We conduct follow-up weed removal, quarterly lake cleanups, and share the knowledge through social media and neighborhood meetings. And I'm going to then hand it over to Jennifer to tell you what we accomplished.
Thank you. I'm blessed to be here, and I wanted to say that I'm a former Minnesotan, and I was in Minnesota last week, and everything that I'm doing here and we're doing, or that's motivating me, has to do with that, because when I was in Minnesota last week, I walked all sorts of different nature areas and wetlands and lakes, and frankly, they're pristine. They're amazingly beautiful. And so I'm very motivated because the the lake at Sixth and Central, basically in St. Petersburg, is a gem. And it needs a lot of polishing to get it back to where it was. And so that's a huge motivation that I have. And that's kind of the gut where it comes from. So I know what accomplished is that with this grant, over the last 20+ months, we've been kind of methodically working. But we've been able to take and start rescaping the lakefront. And so we're removing, through Jim as a botanist, all of the invasive species and all of the species that are growing in places and not allowing for wildlife to be able to access the lake and then land so that they can kind of have a natural habitat. So beyond everything that we're listing here, what we're doing is creating a brand new natural habitat, where this year we had Gallinoos have small birds, which we haven't had in years. We had 2 sets of ducks that have little ducklings now, and I counted this morning, we have 8 in one group and 4 in another group, which we just haven't had these things for since I moved here, which I've only been here for a year and a half, or 2.5 years, excuse me. So this is a major improvement beyond all of everything that's happening here. And the pollinator, I'm certain, is helping with the bees, and the wildlife is allowing for this ecosystem to kind of recreate itself. And so it's really such an honor to be able to be a part of this and have people appreciate it and acknowledge it. You can go to the next. So we're working on moving from the circle on the left, which is where the pollinator garden is, all the way across where the top, that's the north side of the lake, the top rectangle yellow area there. So that across the street from that, if people are familiar, it's where the shuffleboard courts are in St. Petersburg, just as a reference point. And that used to have 6 foot to 8 foot high weeds that went out 6, 8, 10 feet. So we've gotten it now, so we actually have a shoreline. So when you're standing at the shuffleboard court, you now can actually see water of the lake instead of this briar. It's really, truly a huge impact. And our neighbors are seeing it. And there's so many more people walking the paths every day and enjoying the spaces. And it really, really is a major impact to that entire area. And I just appreciate that other people are seeing the impact as well. So, and that was my last slide, right? You're back at it? Okay. Yeah, I appreciate everything that you're acknowledging, and it's an honor. Thank you.
Well, congratulations. We don't have 1,000 lakes, but we do have 261 ponds and lakes in Pinellas County. So we appreciate your good work. And
They have 10,000 lakes.
I meant to say thousands of lakes.
Well, no, Michael Perry said there are 80 urban lakes in St. Petersburg, and we're addressing 7 of them, soon to be 8. We're gonna be taking on Lake Pasadena too in the next week or 2.
Wonderful.
But I just wanted to give acknowledgements and thanks. We couldn't have done all of this without our partners. The city of St. Petersburg, their public works, engineering, stormwater, parks and recreation, and Keep Pinellas Beautiful. We have Megan Jackson here representing KPB. They help us on all of our lakes as far as providing manpower, canoes, equipment, and getting the word out on their Eventbrite site for volunteers to come to these cleanups. And also our funding from Tampa Bay Estuary Program, Surfing's Evolution and Preservation. We have 3 water goats on that lake now. A local citizen, Armando Lopez, and the Slagle Foundation. And Boats and Plants, GoCo Kayak Rentals, Sweet Bay Nursery, Florida Natives Nursery, and Amplex Nursery. So the city provides a lot of those plants from.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, last year, actually, we funded a lot of the plants ourselves through some of these, the grants. And this year, because we had done so much work, the city of St. Petersburg has stepped up, and they've now, this year, I think, purchased almost 1,700 plants to help us out on top of what we have already been doing. So we're really making some big strides, and they're excited because we're excited. Yeah, so they planted other trees and scaped some other areas that they weren't planning on doing because once the momentum comes, it creates more momentum. So, really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. We're gonna grab a picture. Members, join us back here for a photo. I think we're gonna start over there for a photo. Jack's here in time for the photo.
You guys are all.
Wherever you want us.
So you're here today.
You're in it.
I was told I would be in the corner.
Okay.
Jim, join us.
Jennifer, you can come up here, and Jim.
Something, Megan.
This doesn't move, does it?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Right behind us.
I got it.
Someone just unplugged something.
All right, scooch it on this side a little bit.
Figure it out.
Close.
All right, squish in.
You're in the trees now.
Yeah, we're in the trees.
It's a good place though.
Okay, hopefully nobody blinked at any of those.
I also forgot to introduce Sarah Schaefer. Hi. She is our social media guru.
I do marketing and comp.
Yeah.
It's just for fun. Thank you.
All right, next is our champion of the Bay. Ed?
Yeah, one other award we like to give out to longstanding members and participants of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program in our activities is the Champion of the Bay. This is an award we'll go to a fellow that he's no introduction. He volunteers not only with our program, but several other environmental programs throughout the watershed, Tampa Bay Watch, Keep Pinellas Beautiful, Keep Tampa Bay Beautiful, all of them. He's at every event. He's usually the first one there, the last one to leave, provides tractor trailers, other equipment as necessary to get the Give a Day and volunteer events accomplished. So without further ado, we wanted to proclaim Harry Cunningham III, our champion of the Bay for 2024. I have a short little proclamation here. I know it's somewhat of a surprise to you. Harry lives over on the hill. A little bit of a gift to give him to you. Nice picture of the Little Manatee River, close to his home over in Riverview. And we do have a proclamation. I'll read it really quickly just to honor Harry a little bit more. So Harry, a proclamation of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program, whereas Harry Cunningham III has given countless hours for protecting and restoring Tampa Bay over much of his life. Whereas Harry continues to eagerly volunteer and haul tractors and trailers to Give a Days for the Bay events to ensure the improvement of difficult to access land. Whereas Harry continues to be a reliable, committed volunteer at the program's Give a Day for the Bay events, as well as other partners events, and earned the Volunteer of the Year award in 2009. And whereas Harry is an integral member of the program's Community Advisory Committee, serving as co-chair from 2012 to 2014. And whereas Harry's dedication to the program is exemplified by the sweat equity embodied in a sewn quilt of all the Give a Day for the Bay event t-shirts he's acquired and sits in our office as we speak. Whereas Harry's passion and commitment to protecting nature in wild Florida has left a lasting impression on all that know him. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Tampa Bay Estuary Program that Harry Cunningham III is designated a champion of Tampa Bay. Words, if not, we'll just take a picture.
Well, words. Thank you. It has always been enjoyable and a treat to work on any of the projects that I've had the pleasure of working on. A lot of sweat equity, but a lot of other volunteers have been there at the same time. And I have seen obviously improvements. I was born and raised in Hillsborough County. And I have seen improvements throughout the Bay on the different projects that we worked on. And I of course, obviously appreciate it. Comes as a bit of a surprise.
We're hoping so. We're hoping the word didn't get out.
Yeah, well, apparently it didn't. But anyhow, I will continue, of course, at every opportunity to help any of the organizations that need assistance. And sometimes, of course, you get slightly pessimistic about these things, but yet I do see that we are improving, and I see people who apparently have come from other areas, thank you very much, and have made a definite improvement in whatever projects they're working on. So those of us who are native, we appreciate that. And I don't know what to say other than that. I could talk forever, but I probably wouldn't say anything. So thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Okay. Should I have this at the same time?
Yes.
Where would you like to take this photo?
Back to the call.
Right? Tell him, you know, you miss out. This is the big photo I want. Happen every time. Closer together, everybody, like you like each other. Right. Beautiful, thank you.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Harry. I'm not keeping
Great
it.
job, my friend. Thank you so much.
See you soon.
Yes.
That's what I said. The guy was like, here's how you can do it. And I was like,
Thank you all for being here this morning. It really is a highlight of our year to have you all with us. All right, we're moving on to our action items. Item number 4, quarterly financial. Mr. Sherwood.
Yeah, on page 9 of the full agenda packet was our financials through basically the first half of fiscal year 2024 through March 31st, 2024. So our financials, as I've been reporting at the last quarterly report, we have some notations on there in terms of being below expectations in terms of in-kind revenues collected for the year, but we're expecting to collect some of those in-kind revenues from projects from partners as identified in our work plan before the close of this fiscal year. Also, just to note, other expenses and volunteer services, as I've reported at the last quarterly meeting, are a little bit higher than what we anticipated when we developed our budget last August. And the next agenda item will give me an opportunity to adjust our budget from last August to bring it more in line with our realized expenses for the fiscal year. But in total, we like to look at that last column and see that we're about 50% on most of the items in terms of what we budgeted in terms of revenue and expenses. In total, we're about 1.4 million in terms of recognized revenues so far this year, about 45% of what we budgeted. In terms of total expenditures, we're about 1.3 million, about 36% of what we budgeted at the start of our fiscal year. So as I mentioned, we'll make some slight adjustments based on the pace and activity of the projects and how they might close and be recognized in this fiscal year. In the next agenda item, I'd be happy to answer any questions as it relates to our quarterly report for this period.
Are there questions or is there a motion to accept?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Show it passes unanimously. Item number 5, mid-year budget amendment, Mr. Sherwood.
Yeah, so as I mentioned on Page 11 is our recommending updates to the budget that we adopted last August. And again, this gives me a chance to bring our actual realized revenues and expenditures a little bit closer to what we were observing through the first half of this fiscal year. So just wanted to note, I have made some changes in terms of what we anticipate recognizing in terms of federal revenues, fully recognizing some of the contributions and donations that have came into the program and adjusting that budget item up slightly. Actually, I have some more good news that I'll talk about a little bit later in the agenda related to additional donations. And as I mentioned on the expenses side, we'll make some adjustments up for other expenses and volunteer services. Again, recognizing some of the expenditures for sponsored conferences that we didn't anticipate when we developed our budget last August, as well as some angler incentives that we were using to encourage participation in the angler survey we had out on the Skyway Fishing Pier. And then increasing our postage expenses up slightly just to recognize that we're going to be conducting some mailed surveys later on in this fiscal year that we didn't anticipate when we developed the budget last August. And last but not least, slightly adjusting down our contracts and consultant services expenditures for the year, just again, based on the pace of projects being completed. And this is just to recognize that even if those expenditures aren't recognized this fiscal year, they'll be rolled into the next fiscal year whenever the projects are completed and recognized. So overall, some slight adjustments in terms of overall revenues, about 1.5% decrease, as well as a reduction in total expenditures about 2.8%. And this will bring our budget a little bit closer to what we'll adopt later in November as our final budget of realized revenues and expenditures later this year. Be happy to answer any questions if you have any with regards to the mid-year budget amendment.
Yeah, Commissioner.
Yeah, how do you feel about that 770% increase for post?
So it was $250. Yeah, so these are minor adjustments but relative to our total budget. Yeah.
Further questions? Shows up late, ask snarky questions.
Keeps me on my toes.
If there's no further questions, is there a motion to accept?
So
Move to accept.
We have a motion, we have a second. Further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Show it passes unanimously. Item number 6, EPA work plan.
Yeah, so at the May meeting, what we tried to do is adopt our anticipated work plan budget for the next fiscal year, which would start October 1. Basically, this is a requirement of EPA that we submit as a grant application to receive the federal appropriations designated by Congress each year. This year, we're actually seeing level funding to what we received last year, so about $850,000 from Section 320 Clean Water Act. Funding from Congress has been apportioned to each of the 28 national estuary programs. And our program matches those federal dollars 1-to-1 as required by EPA with contributions from our interlocal agreement. This year, there's about $650,000 in contributions from each of our partner agencies represented around the room here. And any shortfall in the congressional appropriations, we try to make up with an in-kind project that's already being conducted by one of our partners and further implementing our comprehensive management plan. This year, the city of Tampa is doing a citywide watershed master plan that we're including as the in-kind project this year. One thing I just wanted to note in terms of the ranges that are indicated, both in terms of the local funds that will be coming to the program as well as the in-kind project, that reflects basically uncertainty in the contribution of Tampa Bay Environmental Restoration Fund for one of our partners, Manatee County. They'll be considering that later on this year. And if that contribution does come into the program, then there's a slight interlocal agreement contribution adjustment to their member funding levels. So once we recognize that one way or another, we'd submit that as a sort of the final number to EPA as part of our work plan. This annual work plan basically encompasses almost 90% of our operating expenses. Pretty much keeps our lights on, pays our rent, pays our accounting, legal services, as well as audit services for the year. So it pretty much encompasses a lot of our operating costs, including salary and fringe. We also supplement it with a lot of other grant funding that we'll adopt in August in terms of our program-wide budget. But this annual work plan basically encompasses the majority of our operating costs, as well as about $500,000 in additional technical outreach and education projects that we're able to fund with the additional funds that are left over. So this year, we presented a draft of these technical and outreach and education projects at the February board meeting, this draft work plan. And really nothing has changed other than finalizing the funding levels for the projects as identified there. There's 4 technical projects and 6 outreach and education projects that we're targeting for funding. And again, one of those has a range of values, and that's based on whether or not we fully recognize a TBRF contribution from one of the funding partners this year. But other than that, pretty much similar activities as we presented at the February board meeting. That encompasses, as I mentioned, the annual appropriations that we receive as a national estuary program through the Clean Water Act. Also within this work plan, if you link to the full document, it's about 118 pages long, but section 4 also identifies funding that we receive from EPA through the bipartisan infrastructure law. We're set to receive about $909,800 each of the years between 2022 and 2026. We passed a long-term strategy identifying about 12 projects in total over that 5-year period to fund through those additional funds that are coming into the program. And in section 4 of this work plan, we were just basically further vetting that we'll be providing a separate application to EPA to receive those funds, and the 2 identified projects for the funding year 2025 or year 4 of those bill funds are identified on the bottom there. So 2 projects helping Pinellas County with their septic to sewer conversion projects, as well as City of Largo's wastewater treatment plant upgrades at their facility in Largo. So in total, as I mentioned, what we're looking for is approval of the annual work plan, and for me to submit that as the application for our funding through EPA as a national estuary program, as well as submitting a separate application to continue the bill funding for those 2 projects identified there for year 4 of the bipartisan infrastructure law funding. With that, I'll be happy to entertain any questions or dive into any of the questions you might have on particular projects.
Are there questions?
One question.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Justice, looking at Pinellas County septic and sewer, tell me how that program went, because I mean, you guys have done some great programs, so.
Which one is this, Ed? Specifically, we have partnered, I'm sorry.
S2S septic to sewer, we're primarily targeting areas in and around the Leelman area and some of the underserved and overburdened areas where there's hotspots.
We did the, when we got the BP money, we did the I&I study, and then we identified some hotspots, and we're going through, not only we're connecting new laterals and new pipes for our main line, we're finding areas. I don't think many of us realize how many septic tanks we still had in Pinellas County. And so a couple years ago, we got a large fund from the state to do a big project in Dunedin Mobile Home Park, and now we're going in through hitting some of these other spots. So had pretty good success, but still a lot more to go.
Just as a side note, next year, the last year bill funding, we're actually going to support a similar project in Hillsborough County, and I think they're targeting the Town and Country and Gibsonton area for some of those conversions.
Further questions? Yeah, we did, the legislature passed in 2010 a massive septic tank inspection program, and then repealed it in 2011. So every county's kind of having to do their own thing now. Further questions, discussions, or is there a motion to approve action item number 6, including the approval of the plan and the authorizations included?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So it passes unanimously. Item number 7, environmental restoration fund projects. Ms. Lewis.
Good morning. So there's some newish faces here, so I'll give a little background information on this subject. The Tampa Bay Environmental Restoration Fund, or TBRF as we call it for short, is a competitive award program. It's a public-private partnership. It's co-managed by us and Restore America's Estuaries, which is a nonprofit. And the projects that are funded through TBERG implement CCMP goals like habitat restoration, water quality improvement projects, behavior change campaigns, applied research along those lines. This year's contributors, you can see on your packet, but I'll call out Swiftmud, Hillsborough, Pinellas, the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough, and multiple private donations as well from Mosaic, the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay Pollinator Fund, and Crossway Memorial Fishing Tournament, which we'll hear a little bit more about later too, and several other smaller donations as well. And we have additional support, as Ed mentioned, that may be coming from Manatee County that's not yet finalized. So we'll figure that out soon, hopefully. The total amount of support for this year's TBERF pot is about 725,000, maybe up to 816,000. The request for proposals for this year opened January 17th and closed on March 13th. There were many great proposals submitted, 14 in total, with a total cumulative funding request of $2,003,000 and some change. From there, a team of reviewers that are made up of contributors to TBERF review each and every proposal. They provide findings to Ed based on their expertise. And many of the review team are made up of staff from the entities here. So thank y'all to your staff very much. Definitely could not pull off TBERF without the help of that really strong review team. So in front of you today are Ed's funding recommendations based on that review team's findings. Pending finalization of that available funding, we're recommending up to 5 projects and maybe just 4 in the amounts listed on your agenda. Those 5 projects are the Crooked River Preserve, hydrologic assessment and wetland restoration plan, the St. Petersburg septic to sewer conversion project, the stormwater baffle box system in Pasco County, the Little Manatee River restoration for Area 8, and potentially the Oyster Reef restoration along armored Tampa Bay shorelines using 3D printed oyster habitat with USF. So the funding total will either be 725,000 or 816,000, depending on finalization of contributions. There are 3 recommendations in front of you. Some of you may want to abstain. We can note that. We don't. Okay, great. Do you have any questions about this year's TBERF or any projects or any recommendations?
Commissioner.
I'm glad to see Pasco County got that baffle box program going. Excited for the first one, so thank you for putting that through. But I'm interested about that 3D printed oyster habitat. Is it a local company doing that, or how does that take place?
So it's actually a University of South Florida class or professor department, I guess, that's doing that. The students have designed different sort of 3D models that they're going to use a ceramic printer, 3D printer for, that will then be affixed or placed in front of seawalls to enhance seawalls. So this is sort of like a pilot project. I mean, they've done a little bit of piloting, but they're going to do a little bit more of an assessment with this project to see just how effective they may be at creating habitat for oysters and fish and anything else.
I've seen one from a place called In Kind Designs. I think Anya Freeman actually presented for the council at one point. Maybe here, I'm not sure, but. Right, and I'll tell you that the machine is over Miami, so it's very expensive to ship materials over here, but I think it's something that if that 3D printers even in the area, I'd love to know more about the company and tell you what some other things we could possibly do.
They do. They have one printer. I believe they are hoping to purchase an additional 3D ceramic printer with this TBERF grant. And I don't know who makes the printer, but it will be run and it will be created by USF students and faculty. Sure.
Yeah, it's at a much smaller scale than the commercial printers, and they're going to create modules that they stack on top of each other from seawalls.
That was an easy one. Come on. All right.
There's no further questions or discussions or a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So it passes unanimously. Item number 8. Item number 8. Carrie. Thank you.
So I'm gonna give you a little bit of background on this project. This is an RFP that we had out from February 14th through April 5th, where we were advertising a project to assess the condition, stability, and spatial extent of a legacy tire reef. And if you all haven't heard about this tire reef, it was discovered basically during a hard bottom mapping project that the estuary funded a couple of years ago. And it's about a 5-acre area, and there's several older tires. If you look at it underwater, there's a little bit of epifaunal growth that's on the top of it. We've also funded some fisheries work to see, you know, what kind of fish are using this habitat. But this tire reef was put into place in the late 1960s. So it's very old. The tires are old. And what we're looking for in this contract is basically for the consultant to assess the condition of this reef and see, you know, what's the best way forward? Should we remove the tires? Should we, you know, kind of surround them with more appropriate artificial reef materials? You know, and basically do a little bit of an angler survey to see if folks are fishing on this area. So the end product of this would be a restoration plan, permit application materials, and a cost estimate for, you know, what we should do with this area. So we had 4 consultants that put in applications for this project, and we convened a review committee on April 25th, and that consisted of myself and 4 other folks that are experts in artificial reef restoration, hard bottom communities, and fisheries. And based on our review metrics, we assessed these proposals, and you can see the average total scores and total scores ranks in the table in your packet. Cummins Cedarburg was the highest scored applicant, and close behind them was Res Florida Consulting. So you have 3 actions in your packet based on our review of these projects. And what we'd like to do is authorize the executive director to negotiate a scope with the top ranked consultant, and if that doesn't go through, with the second ranked consultant. And then also to authorize the executive director to amend the scope up to $25,000. Does anyone have any questions about the projects? Yes.
Yeah, can you kind of go through the metrics again the consultant's going to use to evaluate what the dangers are, what the continuing, you know, potential dangers are, what remediation methods can be used and so forth, and in a little more detail?
Sure. So basically this project is to assess the condition of that reef and, you know, what kind of hazards it could pose. So for example, in other areas where there are tire reefs, you know, some of these tires have gotten loose from the sediment and washed up on beaches. Others, you know, there could be potential contaminants associated with tire reefs. So basically this project is to remap the area in detail so that we know exactly what's there. They're actually going to do an estimated count of all the tires that are there, and then look at the condition. You know, if they're degrading, is it going to cause more damage to actually take the tires out or to leave them there, and, you know, put some sort of other artificial reef components on it. So does that answer your question?
Well, is there data now that it actually is causing harm, like tires floating ashore on the beaches or anything like that? I'm just curious
Well,
as to-
if you look at the area of where the tire reef is located, there's a main area where most of the tires are located, but you can't see patches that are outside of that. So we think that some of them are moving a little bit. So that's a potential.
This is also running in parallel with a larger effort by Pinellas County artificial reef program to remove some of the tire reefs that are offshore of the coast that have been washing ashore during storm events. So this is just another site that's in the bay that we're working on in collaboration with Pinellas County.
Any other questions?
I just make a comment. When I look at the, I know it looks pretty easy to make a this decision. I would say Cummins, being that they're so much less than the other higher cost firm, that I suppose at the top, seems like a pretty easy decision. There's no concern between what one's gonna do to the other as far as research and.
So all of the applications were great. What really set Cummings Cedarburg apart from the others, and Rez, who's the second ranked applicant, was that they closely followed the RFP and what we actually wanted out of the contract.
Further questions? Discussion? Motion to approve the authorizations included in your agenda item.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Show it passes unanimously. Item number 9, Climate Science Advisory Panel, Ms. Burke.
Did make it so that I have sharing permissions up here now, I think, Ed.
There's some good discussion at the management board meeting that Maya's going to review. This is basically to gauge the level of interest of reconvening the Tampa Bay Climate Science Advisory Panel, which we have co-facilitated in the past.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I'm Maya Burke. I'm the Assistant Director of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. And I'm bringing this item before you all based on largely on requests that have come to us from some of the staff members at your respective organizations. So I want to tell you a little bit about the Climate Science Advisory Panel, and then what we're asking you to consider today. First, just high-level information about the Tampa Bay Climate Science Advisory Panel. This is an ad hoc group of local, regional, and federal agencies, university members, and private sector partners. And their objective is really to provide scientific support to local governments who are planning for a changing climate. This group was originally convened by Pinellas County, the UF IFAS Extension Sea Grant agent, who retired earlier this year. The purpose of the Tampa Bay Climate Science Advisory Panel is not to conduct more studies, do novel research, run models, none of those things. It's really to help weed through the complex science that's already available to local government practitioners. So we know that there are international bodies that are producing climate science and climate recommendations. There are national panels, and the National Climate Assessment is putting information out there. The state is now in the game of producing statewide projections and statewide requirements related to climate change planning. And then many local governments have also adopted policies with respect. So it can be very complex for someone who's an engineer or a planner who has quite a bit of work on their plate already to ask them to also be scientists and climate scientists, wading through all of this information and making assessments and judgment calls on how to apply it within their local communities. So additionally, there's also quite a bit of sensational headlines in the news media that people are exposed to, and this can sometimes influence their understanding of the nature of climate risks, and it can lead to wide variations in how different local governments might be planning for different climate targets. And so really the goal of the Climate Science Advisory Panel is to be science-based, to be evidence-based, and to give strong recommendations so that we can speak with one voice as a region about the most likely climate scenarios that make sense for local governments to use when they're planning to protect the health, safety, and welfare of residents. So just to give you a little bit of background about what this has looked like in context and a history of the Climate Science Advisory Panel as a whole, the group was actually formed back in 2014 when the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners met at their regular county commission meeting and authorized their extension agent to work regionally, not just within Pinellas County, but within Pasco, Hillsborough, and Manatee County as well, to address the issue of climate change. And at the same time, we also had both national and international reports. The third National Climate Assessment and the IPCC's 5th report were released in that year. In response to that information that was available through those national and international reports, the Climate Science Advisory Panel was convened to spend about a year doing co-production processes, co-learning, making sure that we had consensus on the projections of sea level rise information. And then we were able to release a report on the recommended projection of sea level rise for the Tampa Bay region. Later that year, the Parallel Flood Act passed, and really what this meant is that if you wanted to participate in vulnerability assessments and bring down state funding for some of your stormwater planning and community rating system programs and different things where you're addressing people's exposure to flood risk, you needed to have a sea level rise projection. And in our area, we were well prepared because the Tampa Bay Climate Science Advisory Panel had produced this report. Then 2 years later, in 2017, the National Climate Assessment released a new report, which is a technical basis for sea level rise projections that would be incorporated into subsequent national climate assessments. So based on that new sea level rise information, there began to be some concern that we had newer and better available data, and that ought to be considered in regional projections of sea level rise. Then in 2018, we were very fortunate that the local governments throughout the region came together to participate in a memorandum of understanding to form the Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Coalition. So you see that it was 4 or 5 years between when the Climate Science Advisory Panel was initially formed, when we began to really formally get together as a region to establish a resiliency coalition and work together on many of these issues. At that same time, I had been participating in the Climate Science Advisory Panel since its very beginning, but that year, my colleagues on the Climate Science Advisory Panel requested that I serve as a co-facilitator of that group. So the Tampa Bay Estuary Program was not the convener, but I did take on a leadership role in making sure that we were facilitating that group as well at that time. So we went through another iterative process, looking at the best available data, and produced an updated report in 2019 on the projections of sea level rise for the Tampa Bay region. But then a few years later, you see the trend here, we get new data again. So in 2022, we have another National Climate Assessment Sea Level Rise Technical Report that's released. By this time, the state legislature has also established something called the Florida Flood Hub, which is based at the University of South Florida and is convened by one of our Tampa Bay Climate Science Advisory Panels, Dr. Gary Mitchum. They form a statewide group to look and produce statewide projections of sea level rise. And then we also had another International Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC report. The sixth AR report was released in 2022. So you can see very quickly how easy it would be to be overwhelmed with trying to keep up with the state of the science as this landscape is changing, and how different international, federal, state, and local interests are sort of interplaying on what is sometimes a very contentious issue. So we had a broad discussion at the Tampa Bay Estuary Program Management Board about what was needed here. And essentially their recommendation was that the Tampa Bay Climate Science Advisory Panel provides really invaluable services to the region. They're helping us speak with one voice that makes us more competitive for things like grant applications. They're taking data and helping local governments make science-based decisions so that they can protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. And so they felt that with the retirement of the Pinellas County Sea Grant agent and the inability of Pinellas County to continue to convene this group, that they felt that the Tampa Bay Estuary Program was a logical place to convene the Tampa Bay to act as a convener of the Tampa Bay Climate Science Advisory Panel and continue to coordinate with the Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Coalition based on our science-based and honest broker role in the region. So they have provided this recommended action to you all to both recommend that the policy board authorize the Tampa Bay Estuary Program to convene the Tampa Bay Climate Science Advisory Panel. And then the second part that they were requesting is, it's been since 2019 that we have updated regional projections of sea level rise for the Tampa Bay area. And so they are requesting that the policy board request the Climate Science Advisory Panel provide that update to the 2019 recommended projection of sea level rise report for the Tampa Bay region. This is largely because many of your staff folks are currently working on vulnerability assessments funded through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Many of those projects are now on hold because the local projections of sea level rise are not based on the most recent and best available data. And so there's a desire to update that report and make sure that this important work continues. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions?
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
So Pasco County's late to the game as far as doing a resilience study, in the process of doing now, working with Regional Planning Council as well. The data that they're using is like two levels of like, one's a low, one's a high. I'm trying to like figure out which ones. Do you know if we're using the most recent data, or are we using data from like 8 years ago?
That's part of the challenge. So I'm not familiar specifically with what data they're using for your vulnerability assessment. But as we're out of step with having a regional projection of sea level rise, what happens is many local governments are going it on their own, and they may or may not, be picking numbers that and scenarios that are consistent with one another. And that really doesn't make sense for things like seawalls or stormwater infrastructure where the elevation really matters. It's important that we have a pretty seamless kind of relationship from one municipality to the other, so that we're not creating these sort of wide disparities in how we're protecting folks from flood risk. So I'm not exactly sure, but if you're using the regional recommendation right now, you are using the data that's based on a 2017 report, and it's not currently considered the best available information.
I believe Alan Biddlecombe mentioned that they're probably gonna need to use the updated 2022 numbers, and whether or not they get updated again before you guys finalize that vulnerability assessment. I think what Maya and this group would do is place sort of that regional emphasis to speaking in one voice of what each entity should be looking at in terms of their recommendations for sea level rise, and be vetted by this advisory panel and such. Just to add a little bit more to what Maya's mentioned about the group, I think there's a lot of discussion at the management board about this body being fairly independent, much like we facilitate the Nitrogen Management Consortium to convene around managing nutrients to Tampa Bay within the region. Very much look at this group as sort of that independent ad hoc body that we'd be facilitating as well through the estuary program. So that was much of the discussion that happened at the management board. And again, this is what we're trying to provide as a service to the region, so that we are more competitive with both those federal and state dollars that are coming down for resiliency initiatives that are funding needed projects within the region. So again, I think this puts us at an advantage if we're speaking from one voice and not having all these disparate estimates in each of our applications to both those state and federal resources.
And I'll agree, I think it's a good idea to bring it together, because if Pinellas is using one thing, Pasco's using something, Hillsborough's got something else, and it's like, it's not gonna jive when everybody else looks at it. So I think it does make a lot of sense. My team actually talked to him this morning on my way down as I'm driving down, because we had a meeting yesterday about the latest update. And I'm saying, have you used the data from the resiliency recommendations from 2 years ago to put this into your resiliency study? And they were unaware of it. So definitely need to get all the information together, and I think it's a great way to take a step forward for that.
Sure. Question also.
Yes, sir.
I think it's a great idea as well. My question is, have you guys coordinated much with Florida DEP or staff at SwiftMud to discuss
Yes.
moving forward with this as well?
SwiftMud has been a member of the Tampa Bay Climate Science Advisory Panel since the very beginning. It's from a different section, so it's John Ferguson, who was in the water supply section. And he's a geologist, so he's kind of familiar with some of the groundwater and saltwater intrusion interface issues. This is an ad hoc body, and so we're able to, add different expertise or, tap into different folks at the agencies as it makes sense. We don't have a representative from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection on the committee, but again, that's something that we could add. But we certainly have talked very closely with some of the staff in their resiliency office that manages many of these grants that come down. So they're aware of these projections, and they're sort of aware that this is a resource available to the region.
Yeah, it would just seem a good idea to speak with one voice and have all the agencies impacted comment on this, or have a representative as part of it. I obviously don't want to get into too big a situation. You want it to be independent.
Yeah, I think that the goal of this group will be to take all of these disparate projections, and none of the projections, it's not that they disagree with one another, it's that they provide probably a range of possible futures that's too broad to be actionable for those of you, your staffs who are making like engineering level decisions. So our goal is to sort of take all of those sources of information, all of those projections, and figure out, that a narrower range that is applicable and actionable here for the region.
Further questions? If not, is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Show it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Executive Director and staff reports, Mr. Sherwood.
Yeah, a couple of good news items before we dive into the staff reports. As we alluded to, we actually just received an additional donation from the Crossway Memorial Fishing Tournament this past Sunday. They've been supporting our program for now. This is the 4th year. They've contributed about 25,000 per year. What this has allowed us to do is supplement some of the artificial reefs that are being deployed off the Manatee County shores, as well as fund our Tampa Bay Environmental Restoration Fund. And as was mentioned, depending on the funding sources, their dollars are going to be directed either to the Crooked River Ranch project or that USF 3D printed oyster project. So again, this is great news. Additional funds coming into the program. These dollars were actually going to be targeted towards next year's Tampa Bay Environmental Restoration Fund. And it further helps us to support a lot of great projects throughout the region that will implement the CCMP. So I want to thank them. Think they would like a picture as well. I'll ask you guys to do one more picture.
Yeah. What else do you have under the desk there, Mike?
These are all good surprises.
Big check is always.
Tell Ryan he can't miss a meeting ever again.
People can.
I'm not swaying.
Wait, someone come over here.
You gotta come this
Yeah, come out, I guess.
The imposter over here.
Look at it again.
I did, I know, I'm sorry. All right, 1, 2, 3. Very nice. Thanks, guys.
Again, some great news in terms of additional donations coming into the program. Also wanted to mention towards the tail end of March and into early April, I was able to participate at the EPA Association National Estuary Program Spring Meeting in Washington, DC, and meet with our local congressional delegation to continue encouraging their support of the National Estuary programs and sort of the outcomes of that, and many of the directors meeting with their own local delegations. About 88 representatives and 21 senators signed on in support of appropriations, our continuing appropriations for the National Estuary Program. So those appropriations that they're deciding this year will basically be the foundation for the work plan that I'll present next February and May to you all. So some great news, bipartisan support across the board for what we're doing, place-based organizations throughout the country, putting dollars to work in estuaries of national significance. So just wanted to mention that. I'll turn it over to some of our staff reports. Sheila, you want to give an update on some volunteer events and other things going on?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So I just want to give you guys a brief update of some upcoming volunteer and community engagement events for the summer. So we have a couple Give a Day events happening in Manatee County. We're doing on June 1st, we're doing a wiregrass planting at Duet. We have over 26,000 wiregrass plugs to plant. So please come out and bring all your friends and family. And then we also have a paddle cleanup. This is one that we typically do every year. It's to celebrate World Oceans Day. And that will be at Bishop Harbor. So we'll launch kayaks and canoes and paddle boards at the Bishop Harbor boat ramp, and then paddle out to Mariposa Key, and then do a bunch of cleanup out there, and then paddle all our trash back in. So this year we are changing it a little bit. Previously, it's been kind of bring your own vessels or bring your own boards. But this year we are working with a local kayak outfitter to provide kayaks for those who might not have their own at home, but still want to participate. So there are still spots available for that. So please share with your friends and families. And then we also are doing
a couple bioluminescence paddles this summer. So we started this sort of last year to raise community awareness about the pyridinium issues and some of the issues happening in Old Tampa Bay. So getting people out on the water to experience the bioluminescence that's caused by the pyridinium blooms, and then kind of educate them about why it's not such a great thing. So these sold out really quickly last year. So I'm kind of giving you guys the first pick at the spots, because I know last year some board members wanted to participate, but it sold out too quick. So you guys get VIP selection this year. And so the dates for those are July 12th and August 2nd. So if you're interested in being added to that list, please let me know. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Sheila. On the heels of the Golden Mangrove Award, Jessica's gonna give an update on this year's Bay Minute Grant Call.
Yeah, so you heard from one of our award winners. We are, there's currently a year going on of the 2024 Bay Mini Grant, but now we're opening the application period for next year's Bay Mini Grant project. So that already opened on May 8th, the application period that closes on September 13th. So we've got some time in there to spread the word to all of the nonprofits and businesses and community associations, schools that are your constituents or your clients. So we'll have an informational webinar on June 11th and August 1st. And we'll probably include that and information going to y'all if you want to include that on your any newsletters that you might send out to your people. I also gave a few different little flyers at your spot. You can take that and put it up in your office or drop it at your favorite coffee shop, little community board, or whatever it is to help get information out to even more people. Thank you.
Staff update is from Maya, going over our revamp of our comprehensive management plan website.
So in late 2023, you guys heard all of the boring text updates to our comprehensive conservation and management plan. And since that time, we've been working hard on updating the web presence so that people can find out easily what's in the comprehensive conservation and management plan, so they can make sure that the projects that they propose to all of these different grant proposals and things like that are consistent with the CCMP, and that they can learn more about our program and our priorities. So today, I just want to give you a preview of what we've been working on. If you are familiar with the 2017 version of the CCMP, it was published digitally as an Adobe eZine product. That was a great advancement at the time, but there were some challenges to using that document. It wasn't particularly searchable. And there's just so much information in the CCMP that having something that's not searchable makes it very difficult for folks who aren't sort of living and breathing this work to engage with. And so our main goals this time was to make something that was a little bit more accessible, visually appealing, and consistent with some of our open science principles. So right now I'm showing you what will be the CCMP landing page on our website. This is still in draft form. We're still doing some edits to the way that this page works, but it's a super high level overview of what the CCMP is. This is a placeholder image that will allow people to sort of have a graphic representation of the topics and action plans that are in the CCMP. And then each of these little icons will be a clickable entry point into that action plan in the CCMP, so you don't sort of have to dig through the whole entire thing. There's also an interactive timeline of the program and the community and the story of the Tampa Bay restoration success. And then there's some fast facts and things that we're building out for each of the main programmatic priorities. Like I said, this is designed to basically be a really simple, easy way to launch you into the nuts and bolts of the CCMP. So there's going to be several different ways to click and enter into this Quarto-based website, which I really want to give credit to Marcus Beck and Sarah Odom at Tangram, who's our consultant. They worked really hard to make sure that this web presence is really accessible and aesthetically pleasing and easy to navigate between. So you can see here, you can see each of the action plans are grouped by each of these program priorities. You can also access them through this action tab on the side. It tells you which other actions in the CCMP that are related to those. There's quite a bit of background information in the CCMP right here, so we've condensed it and sort of kept it closed, and so you can expand by reading more, and you can dive deeper if that's what you want. But if that's not what you're looking for, you can also skip directly to the activities that are here, and each activity is collapsible. So there's, you know, with different levels, you can sort of take a shallow snorkel or do a deep dive depending on your level of interest. And then I mentioned that the document is searchable. So if you click on this little magnifying glass and type, for example, I'm looking at Ms. Hertog, so let's type in Tampa. You can see every time Tampa is mentioned in the CCMP. So whether you're a responsible party or an action is assigned to you, or it's a commitment that your community has made to help furthering the CCMP, it's really easy and accessible to get to that information in a way that's relevant to you as well. So this information at the bottom is basically another way to dive into each of those action plans, and it also includes some of the other guiding documents that we have produced, like our updated research priorities, which you can see right here, and then things like how we implement and finance all of our work. So some of like the higher level guiding documents that are influencing the CCMP. So you all have a link to this information. I encourage you to interact with it, give it a test run, let us know what you think. We think this is a pretty big advancement in how we're serving up this information for the community, and we think it'll make it easier to keep this information up to date and sort of updated in real time rather than waiting every 10 years to sort of take another crack at it. So thanks for indulging. Yes, Tom.
I just wanted to comment, I think it's fantastic, and I commend y'all for doing this. When I first got involved in, when I first started managing work relating to national history programs, I just remember being very overwhelmed by CCMPs and just trying to navigate my way through. So I think it's fantastic you're doing this.
It's
gonna make
hundreds of activities, you know, nearly 40 actions, 16 action plans. Like, it's just a lot of information. And if you're just a regular person who cares about Tampa Bay, it's very hard to sort of figure out how you fit in there. So we're hopeful that this maybe gets it a little bit easier.
Make it accessible, that more meaningful and valuable.
As far as I know, none of the other NEPs are creating CCMPs in this format, so.
Marcus,
Model.
Marcus is very proud, and like he should be. This was a really huge lift, and it's really awesome what he put together. And I think this is another example of Tampa Bay leading the way for other NEPs. And because it's built in this open science format, it's very easily reproducible. That code is now available. It has our styling. That was our like CSS, our web's coding styling in there, but it's something that other NEPs could build off of if they wanted to as well.
I totally agree. Tampa Bay History Program is looked upon by all the other NEPs and EPA's national programs leaders. This is a great example of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And that years ago, we made the commitment to that open science, to sharing the information that we had, not only to other similar organizations and colleagues, but trying to get it as accessible to the public as possible. So really great work, folks. We really appreciate it.
Congratulations. It looks fabulous.
Further questions on that? All right, we're going to go to the project highlight. Dr. Simmons.
It's for a little bit of intro and background to Dr. Simmons's talk. We've been working with Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission as well as DEP on this issue out at the Skyway Bridge fishing pier. So this is all focused on trying to reduce the propensity of hooking birds and angler interactions on that fishing pier. So a big component of that was new regulations put into place last October, and sort of the perceptions from anglers of how those new regulations would be and their effectiveness moving forward. So we think this work is very integral to the work we do as an estuary program of matching the science with sort of the expectations of the community in terms of protecting some of the cherished resources of Tampa Bay. So Dr. Simmons is going to highlight some of the early survey outcomes from the work he conducted primarily last fall. Turn over to you.
Good. Well, so hi everyone. For those that I haven't met yet, my name is Blake. I'm the environmental social scientist here, and I actually started in January of last year. And so today, we're going to talk about our first sort of big project that we had launched in this new effort to conduct more social and behavioral research to find solutions to conservation problems in Tampa Bay. So today I'll be giving you a sort of preview of what we found thus far for this project on the Skyway Pier. As most of you probably know, the Skyway Pier, especially the south end, has been sort of mired in controversy over several years regarding the number of hooked pelicans found on the pier. This is really important because those brown pelicans are a very important species to the area, especially in the winter breeding season, where they flock here from all over the world and roost in mangroves throughout Tampa Bay. And so after increasing rates of pelican entanglements, the FWC was trying to find a solution to this problem, held some community listening sessions, talked with multiple different stakeholders to try to find a solution to this problem. And there were sort of a big commotion from both sides, both conservation interest groups as well as angler interest groups that were very passionate about this issue and problems to try to find a solution to it. And basically, ultimately, what the FWC decided back in July of last year was that they were going to have a few regulations come into effect. One of them being that anglers now have to take an educational course online. It takes about an hour if you go through it pretty quickly. It basically just goes over best practices for what to do while you're on the pier and what to do if you actually hook a seabird. They're also now limited to using only 2 sets of hook and line fishing gear on the pier. That's down from 3 that they used to be able to do. And now between the months of November and March every year, this aligns with the breeding season of pelicans. They are restricted from using any fishing rigs with more than 1 hook attached, so like sabiki rigs, chicken rigs, those sorts of things, and any sort of multiple hooks, so no double hooks, no treble hooks, those sorts of things. And like most good regulations, it seemed like nobody really liked this. The anglers were obviously very upset. They didn't want to be told that they can't use their favorite fishing gear. And conservation groups were very angry that this didn't go far enough. So we thought about, what can the Tampa Bay Estuary Program do as someone who has vested interests both in biodiversity and wildlife, but also recreational uses and human well-being within the Tampa Bay area. And so we looked at exactly what it was that FWC was wanting out of these regulations. The key one sort of being, looking at the effectiveness of those regulations. Will they actually work over time? And so they have a 2-year window where they would ideally like to know if these new regulations are actually helping to reduce pelican entanglement severities. The second one, exactly what that goal is reducing the likelihood and severity of seabird entanglements on that pier. And then finally, there was this third goal that's really about looking for a resolution, trying to keep, anglers and pelican interest groups happy on the pier. And so we took this as an opportunity for us as an independent third party to contribute knowledge to all of these questions of, is this regulation going to be effective? Is it going to create positive change, reduction in the number of and severity of seabird entanglements? And how can we actually contribute to this resolution issue by increasing angler support for these regulations, which will ultimately then increase compliance, reducing the number of pelican injuries, making the policy more effective, and then once they hear that the regulations are actually having a positive effect, will then just spur on even more support. So we took this as an opportunity to design a 2-year project where we would look at the effectiveness of those fishing gear restrictions at reducing the rate of severe pelican entanglements, specifically on the South Skyway Fishing Pier, which has the highest rate of pelican entanglements. So we had several objectives to this. We wanted to be able to compare pelican entanglement rates over 2 years with baseline rates that we have from 2019 and 2020. We also wanted to be able to identify what the risk factors are on the pier for pelican entanglements, and to really be able to understand if these regulations are working. We need to know if people are actually complying with the regulations. So we would go onto the pier and estimate their compliance with those regulations over those first 2 seasons, and look at trends in their perceptions of entanglement before, during, and after the gear restriction season to see if their ideas change over time. And we also wanted to look at the demographic, socioeconomic, and psychosocial characteristics that are associated with anglers' perceptions of pelican entanglement solutions on the pier. So I'm just briefly going to highlight what it is that we did on the pier. So the first component of this, obviously looking at pelicans. So we did this, we would do surveys going down the length of the pier, splitting up the pier into these different sections that we have here, and recording, the number of pelicans that we saw, where we saw them, the condition that they may have been in, so the level of severity of any entanglements, and any other information that we had at that time for those pelicans. And then in addition to that, we went onto the pier and surveyed, collected crowdsourced data from anglers through surveys that I conducted personally on the pier with each of these anglers. And for participating in the survey, each one of these anglers received this little tackle box that you see here that contains about 100 different circle hooks of multiple sizes. And we initially went into this thinking, okay, it's going to be really hard. Nobody's going to want to talk to us. Nobody's going to want to take this survey about this really contentious issue. So we thought, okay, over 2 years, if we can get 200 anglers to participate in this, we can work with that. But what we actually saw was that the anglers ate this survey up. So they were very excited to talk to me, to tell me what they thought, tell me their opinions, and especially once you told them they were getting free circle hooks out of it, they wanted to take it as many times as they possibly could. So after reaching our original goal of 100 people in just a year, in just 4 weeks' time, we ended up tripling our desired sample size now to a total of 600 over 2 years, and having a representative mix of people before the restriction season, during, and afterwards. This unfortunately didn't go quite as planned though. So we reached out to DEP 3 weeks after FWC announced their new regulations to ask for a permit to do this research on the pier. It took about a month before they got back to us, and then we were able to submit a permit request. During that time, we got approval from EPA to conduct our study, and we still hadn't heard back, so we went ahead and started the data collection efforts at the end of September, and we just went ahead and paid the park entrance fee until we could get the permit from DEP. During that time, we surveyed for 16 days and got 100 responses from anglers. But just before the gear restriction season started, FDEP notified us that they were going to decline to offer us a permit, citing that they were concerned that our surveys would negatively impact the visitor experience. We were obviously upset about that. We were like, they love us on the pier, this is great, they want us to keep coming back. But we wanted to, obey DEP and honor their wishes. So we stopped surveying on the pier. Luckily, FWC, particularly Robin Boughton at FWC, was able to hire the person that we had contracted to do the pelican surveys on the pier. And so FWC was able to continue surveying the pelicans, at least, on the pier after that. So our angler data collection stopped right before the gear restriction season started, but FWC has now taken over the pelican monitoring. So today I'm just going to cover this timeline of results that we have thus far. So it's still early, but there's some really promising results here. And today we've got pelican data and results for those as well, but I'm just going to focus on what I think are the most interesting bits, which is what we know about anglers on the pier from this research. So one of the key results is that anglers appear to have an accurate perception of pelican presence on the pier. they tend to be very educated, confident, and largely concerned about the entanglement issue. They are extremely supportive of FWC's educational efforts and actually and are supportive of increased enforcement and punishment of rules on the pier. Most of them do view the gear restrictions, though, as inappropriate, even though they expect most people will comply. And the fact that anglers are visiting quite often, they're there to have fun, and they either go by themselves or with their significant other. This gives us a lot of opportunities when it comes to messages and behavior change for a future campaign. So I'll dive into each of these a little bit more. So this first key result that we have here, we were really interested in thinking about that out of sight, out of mind issue, right? So do anglers actually have a quote unquote real perception of the problem on the pier? So we went onto the pier and we would ask them how many pelicans they had seen at their location on the pier. And we also have our surveyor person going there and collecting the real sort of actual number of pelicans that are on the pier. So if we create a scatter plot basically of the number of pelicans that we saw at a particular spot at a particular time, and plot that with what the angler said they saw at that same time, we're looking for sort of two clear patterns. So if basically we see that anglers are saying they saw more pelicans than we actually saw, then that would indicate a level of oversampling bias. But if we saw more pelicans than they actually observed, then it would be a bit representative of underestimate bias. And what we found in reality, here, this little scatter plot you see here, this kind of heat map, everything's kind of concentrated in this corner. Basically what that means is that the majority of anglers said that they didn't see any pelicans, and we also did not see very many pelicans. So this was only done during the summer season where pelican numbers are pretty low. So it just so happened that there aren't many pelicans there at the moment. But basically what that means is that about 50% of all the anglers that we asked this to were about right in what they perceived to be the number of pelicans and what we saw. And in fact, whenever there is a difference between what anglers think they saw and what we saw, they tend to be overestimating the number of pelicans on the pier instead of underestimating. So this is really good because if this is true, then this means that we don't have to go through the work of trying to challenge anglers' perceptions of reality, right? If they're accurately perceiving the abundance of pelicans on the pier, then likely they're aware of the risks, they understand why this is an issue. But again, we were only able to do this during September and October, not during the days when we would see 50 to 100 pelicans at the pier on a given day. So we need to verify that the people who said zero are actually saying zero because they saw zero and not because they're just not paying attention. We also found really positive results when it came to what anglers think about the issue. So we see that the majority of anglers are concerned about pelicans dying from entanglements. Most of them think that other anglers are also concerned about this. Many of them are very confident in their ability to unhook a pelican if it gets caught. And nearly everybody understands that the worst thing that you can do if you hook a bird is to cut the line. And so this is really promising because all of those past educational efforts, don't cut the line, appears to have gotten through to the population. So we don't have to worry about that key message. It seems like they're well educated on the issue. And they also are generally concerned about it. We don't have to think about new ways to get people to care about this issue. One of the anglers that I talked to about this, he said, nobody likes hooking a bird, right? It's traumatizing for the bird and for the anglers. It's a whole chaotic mess and all this things. They're out there just to have a good time and catch fish, not birds. So this is really positive, and gives us opportunities to shift our focus of behavior change away from those sort of educational or knowledge-based types of approaches. We also asked them to rate how effective they thought different strategies or solutions to this problem might be. And very surprisingly and very promisingly, the number one most effective solution in anglers' eyes is online videos showing how to untangle pelicans and what to do for best practices on the pier. And this is great. This is exactly what FWC is doing on the pier. And so this is great. There's good alignment between what FWC wants and what the anglers want. And also surprising is that they are very supportive of greater enforcement or punishment of people caught feeding pelicans on the pier. So this indicates a good degree of accountability and responsibility that anglers view themselves. They see that, it is their responsibility to do this. And so we don't have to worry, too much about them not really caring about this or not feeling like it's their burden to take on. On the other side, though, it is, less promising that the gear restrictions that we have here are one of the lowest rated in terms of, potential effective solutions. So if there is this misalignment between what FWC is pushing as the primary solution, then there might be, a little bit of distrust or conflict between FWC and anglers on pier. In terms of what they actually think about those gear restrictions, so it is good. Over 75% of them were at least aware of the new gear restrictions on the pier. Most of the ones who weren't aware were usually people that didn't come to the pier very often, or it was their first time, so they just weren't familiar with it. And some positive things that we did see when it comes to their opinions on those restrictions is that they said the difficulty for following those regulations is quite low. That's good. And they think that most people will follow those regulations and that people that are important to them would care if they also followed those regulations. So this is good. Whenever we think about behavior change, one of the number one things we think about is how easy is it to do this particular behavior. So the burden is quite low, even though we have about half of respondents saying that they will be affected by it. They don't think it'll be difficult to do, so that's great. And most people are probably going to follow the rules. But it is a bit of a reluctant compliance because you can see here that anglers are kind of split down the middle when it comes to how appropriate they think the restrictions are, if they think it'll be very effective, and if they think there will actually be people on the pier to enforce it. So those are some of the key kind of things we might want to look at, some of the levers we might want to pull on when thinking about trying to increase support for those regulations on the pier. And then last, some key insights that we also got, we found that over half, nearly 2/3 of the visitors on the pier were coming very frequently, either weekly or monthly. We also saw that the primary reason for going to the pier was fishing for fun with, some added benefit of being able to catch their own food. And whenever they do go to the pier, if they're not going by themselves, they are typically going with their spouse or their significant other. And this is really useful to us if we think about, how important it is that messages get seen multiple times. So the fact that so many anglers are coming to the pier multiple times during the week, multiple times during the month, that increases their exposure to any messages that we might want to have on the pier. And more exposure to messages increases the likelihood of behavior change. They want to go there for fun. Again, thinking back to that angler that says, nobody enjoys hooking, a bird, right? We just want peace. We want quiet. So framing our messages around that degree of fun will be really important for behavior change. And then when we think about, the power of social norms. So we think about, the second highest group of people are going there with their spouse or their significant other. Those types of intra-household companions, those relationships are actually far more influential than our more extended network of friends or family. So when we think about messages, really targeting within the household and getting, spouses, partners, all of those folks on the same page will be really beneficial. And we also really want to target these folks that are going to the pier by themselves, because even FWC recommends in their video on how to safely untangle a pelican to have one person hold the pelican while a second person untangles the pelican. So for those that are going completely by themselves, and sometimes, there's 100 meters or so between one, angler and another. If you're there by yourself and you do hook a pelican, the odds of you not being able to safely untangle it are much higher. So we can target our messages towards those lone anglers, as well as increase monitoring and enforcement on the pier to find those lone anglers. So to wrap up, in terms of sort of key recommendations that we have, in general, we would like to see a more robust experimental design of pelican surveys on the pier. I didn't really talk about it much today, but since FWC has taken over, there have been some scheduling issues and more opportunistic surveys on the pier that make it more difficult for us to reliably compare days between one another. So we would encourage them to adopt our original sampling design strategy to ensure the results will be comparable for those pelican surveys. We do also hope that DEP will permit us to continue this work for the intended second year of this project. We hope that, now that we can see a lot of promising results here, these results aren't scary. They're actually showing really good things for how anglers feel about FWC's efforts. And given how much anglers love us and they enjoy talking to us on the pier, we're hoping that we'll be able to continue and really get at that question of if these regulations are working and how anglers may be changing their minds over time as they experience these regulations. And then just based on personal observations from being on the pier for so long, one of the key things that I think the pier should adopt is having more resources available to anglers on the pier. So there's a lot of Spanish and Asian, Chinese, Vietnamese families that are on the pier that speak limited or no English. And the majority of signs and resources are in English on the pier. And the FWC training video that all anglers are required to take is only available in English. So if we want all of these anglers to actually be empowered and know what it is that they need to do, we really need to have the resources available so that they can actually learn that material. So having more of those resources available on the pier would be great. And also having more staff on the pier would also be really good, both to reduce the amount of trash that's on the pier, which I think is one of the biggest problems and one of the biggest risks to pelicans. Is just there's abandoned fishing line hooks all over the pier. There's discarded bait all over the pier, and the birds just go crazy for all that discarded bait. And also, having more staff, more rescuers on the pier, because the pier is over a mile long. If you've got one rescuer down at one end and you call the hotline when someone cooks a bird, it can take 10 minutes for them to get there. And by then, usually the situation has ended either positively or negatively. So having more staff on the pier would be great. But that's just a quick summary of the results that we have. In the next month, we'll be putting together a TVEP technical report that'll have more details in here for anyone to look at. But yeah, just wanted to give you all a look at these first kind of promising results to get an idea of what it is that we're doing and how useful this type of social and behavioral data can be for solving some of these complex conservation problems. And yeah, open to any questions that you all might have or comments for hopefully a next round of survey efforts next year.
Thank you, Blake. Are there questions?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I think it's great research and please keep us advised as to the next steps with reconsideration with DEP, because I think they probably were not totally informed of all the positives that came out of the study and what's going on. And hopefully can reconsider their decision to not, or moving forward, we'll reconsider that decision.
It's our intention to reapply for a permit ahead of this upcoming season. And as I think Blake did a great job explaining the sort of the human dimensions of some of these critical management issues related to wildlife, natural resources. Can't leave humans out of the equation. We live here, we work here, we play here, and understanding their perceptions through time as these regulations are implemented and sort of their acceptance and their ultimately how effective they are key to why we're actually imposing these regulations. So without that understanding, I think we risk losing a significant opportunity to engage with that community that is important to our region and are reliant on the natural resources that they're trying to enjoy out there as well. So couldn't agree more.
Who's responsible for like the signage and the education out there on the actual pier?
I believe it is State Parks that's responsible for it. They do have several signs, and so there's goods and bads of it in the sense that so October 1st is when the regulations came into place, and so we had been on the pier a couple weeks before that, and then after. And I think literally the exact day of October 1st when the new regulations hit, all of the signs that used to say like, 3 lines per angler allowed were switched to 2. So there's a lot of like good components where the signs are getting updated. But again, the majority of them are in English. There are a few that are in Spanish. And also they're quite spread out. There would be times where I would be talking to an angler and then someone would hook a pelican right in front of me, and I wouldn't have the number to the rescuer, and there weren't any signs near me, so I'd have to choose which direction to run. And if I choose the wrong direction, it's gonna take longer to find the little sign. So whether it's more signs or even just painting, if they want to bring in artists to like create like whole murals, because it's kind of it's a very hot and gray sort of area. So maybe if they want to even liven it up and make it more colorful, but having, the numbers, painted on there, or just more resources or things like that. And that's all things that we can also help with our funds, to give them, more signs, if they want to create a little booth or hand out with the tickets, hotline numbers or things like that. So adding more resources is also something that we can do to help them with these efforts.
Yeah, I think sharing that information about the, diversity of the folks using it, so that they know that, they're aware of that, so that they can communicate the message better. Further questions? All right, thanks, sir. Next, item number 12, information items. Ms. Burke, anything to highlight?
The same information that we typically provide. The dashboard there is hyperlinked in the packet, and so I encourage you to click on that dashboard, and you can do real-time progress updates on all of the different projects that we manage and how we're stewarding these tax dollars for the benefit of the Tampa Bay region. There's also reports on all of the activities that our technical and community education staff have been contributing towards over the past quarter. Some great coverage in press, technical publications, all sorts of things going on, and lots of work to continue to convene the region around all of these important issues. So I encourage you to check all of that out. Our next board meeting is Friday, August 16th, and we'll meet here in this room at 9 a.m.
Mr. Sherwood, anything else for the good of the order? Board members, anything else? All right, if you're attending an event, have a good event. If you're traveling, have safe travels. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Have a great summer, and we'll see you back in August. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
We're to Tampa Bay Watch.
Okay.